My girlfriend posted the dumbest inspirational quote I've ever seen on a sunset background, and it absolutely destroyed our lives. Not because of the quote, but because of everything the quote led me to find underneath it. It started last Tuesday on my lunch break. I wish I had just put my phone down and eaten my sandwich. Let me tell you something about inspirational quotes on social media. They are almost universally harmless. Beige background, some cursive font, a statement about growth or light or becoming your best self. Thousands of them every day, scrolled past, double-tapped without reading, forgotten in the time it takes to move your thumb 2 centimeters. I have seen thousands of these posts in my life. I have had zero opinions about any of them. And then last Tuesday I saw Jenna's. And now I am sitting in my apartment, the apartment that was ours 3 weeks ago and is just mine again since Sunday, writing this out because I need it to exist somewhere outside my head. Because what started as the most ridiculous possible premise, my girlfriend posted an inspirational quote and it caused a catastrophe, turned out to have nothing to do with the quote at all. The quote was just the first loose thread. What unraveled when I pulled it was something I was not prepared for. I need to tell this from the beginning, not from Tuesday, from before Tuesday, because Tuesday only makes sense if you understand what was already there. Jenna and I had been together for 2 years and 4 months. We met at a work event. Not the same company, but one of those awkward cross-industry mixer things that a friend dragged me to and that I spent the first 20 minutes of deeply regretting. She was standing near the appetizer table with the particular energy of someone who had also been dragged there and was also regretting it, and that specific shared misery was the basis of our entire first conversation. We talked for 2 hours. We left before the event was technically over. We got terrible tacos from a place down the street and sat on a curb like teenagers and talked until 11:30 on a Tuesday night. I drove home thinking about her the whole way. She is one of the smartest people I've spent significant time with. Sharp in a way that's not aggressive, observant in a way that made you feel seen. She had strong opinions about things most people float through without noticing. She cared genuinely about the people around her. This is important context. I want you to understand that I am not telling a story where I was blinded by something I should have seen clearly. I want you to understand that what she had built, the version of herself she presented, was genuinely compelling. What I found last Tuesday did not make me feel stupid for not seeing it sooner. It made me feel sad for reasons I'm still sorting out. The post went up at 12:11 p.m. on Tuesday, based on the timestamp I saw when I was scrolling on my lunch break. It was a quote image. Sunset background, the orangey pink kind. White text, that slightly too formal font that these images always use. The quote read, "When you finally stop explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand you anyway, that's when the real healing begins." Below the image, her caption read, "Slowly but surely finding my peace, sunrise sparkles." Now, you are a person reading this on the internet. You have just read that quote. I'm going to guess your reaction is somewhere between mild eye roll and total indifference, because that is the correct reaction to that quote. That is a quote that exists in a genre so well populated that it essentially has no meaning anymore. It is the verbal equivalent of a beige wall. But I am her boyfriend of 2 years and 4 months. And when I read people who were never going to understand you anyway, something small and specific shifted in my stomach, the way a compass needle moves when it gets close to something magnetic. Because we had been in the middle of something. I need to explain the something. About 2 months before Tuesday, Jenna and I had started talking about the future. Specifically about moving. She had been offered a position in a city about 4 hours away. A genuinely good opportunity. A real step up, and she wanted to take it. That was fine. I understood that. I supported it. What became complicated was the question of what happened to us. I was not in a position to move easily. My job is not remote. My mother is in this city and her health is not perfect, and I am not willing to be 4 hours away from her with a 2-hour notice lag if something goes wrong. These are real constraints, not excuses. I communicated them clearly. I said, "Let's think about this together. Let's see what we can figure out." What I did not do, and I have replayed this many times trying to be honest with myself, was immediately and enthusiastically say, "Yes, of course, I'll figure it out, we'll make it work." Because I didn't know yet if we could make it work, and I am the kind of person who needs to actually think through a problem before I can commit to a solution. This is not a character flaw. I believe this, but I can also see how, to someone waiting for an enthusiastic response, the thinking it through could feel like something else. We had talked about it several times over those 2 months. The conversations were good, mostly honest. There was some tension, but productive tension, the kind that happens between two people actually working on a problem rather than avoiding it. I thought we were making progress. I thought we were getting somewhere. The post went up on Tuesday. Tuesday was 12 days before her move date. We had not fully resolved the long-distance question, but we had made peace with the fact that we were going to try, tentatively, honestly, and see what happened. Or I thought we had. I thought that was where we'd landed. I looked at the post for a while. Then I did something I would not normally do. I looked at the comments. This is the part of the story where I need to be honest about something. My looking at the comments was not the neutral act of someone casually browsing. It was the act of someone whose stomach had moved and who was following that movement. The stomach is wiser than people give it credit for. The comments were mostly people she knew. Friends, coworkers, a few relatives. Yes, Queen. Raising hands and this. And so proud of you. Standard, supportive comment architecture. Nothing notable. And then there was a comment from a username I didn't recognize. No profile photo, private account. The comment said, "You deserve this new chapter so much. The way you've been holding it together? Absolutely not okay how much you've had to deal with Blue Heart." Jenna had liked the comment. I stared at that for a while. The way you've been holding it together. What had she been holding together? What had she been dealing with? We'd had a stressful couple of months navigating a real and complicated situation, but I would not have described Jenna as someone who had been holding it together under some kind of extended strain. She seemed fine. She seemed like herself. Unless she hadn't been telling me how she actually felt. Or, and this is where the compass needle started to move more decisively, unless she had been telling someone else. I want to pause here and be transparent about what I did next, because I know some people will have opinions about it and I want to own it fully before anyone else can use it against me. I clicked on the commenter's profile. It was private, so I could see nothing beyond the username and the single comment. The username was the kind of anonymous alphanumeric thing that people use when they don't want to be found. But the comment read like someone who had been told things. The comment read like someone with context. I started thinking about where you go on the internet when you want to tell someone things without being found. When you want to describe your relationship to strangers without your boyfriend or your family seeing it. My mind went to Reddit. I don't know exactly why Reddit first. Maybe because I use it. Maybe because the way that comment read, the way you've been holding it together, had the energy of someone who had been following a situation in installments. The way you follow a post. The way you check back on updates. I typed her name into the Reddit search bar. Nothing came up, obviously, because she wouldn't use her real name. I sat at my desk for a moment. Then I thought about the username on the comment, the anonymous alphanumeric one. On the off chance it was consistent across platforms because people are creatures of habit even when they're trying not to be found. I searched it, and there it was, a Reddit account, posted only in one subreddit, a relationship advice subreddit. And the most recent post, made 6 weeks ago, was titled, "My boyfriend says he loves me, but keeps finding reasons not to commit to our future. Is this what it looks like to slowly be let go?" I have a physical memory of reading that title. The specific quality of the chair I was sitting in. The ambient sound of the office around me. The way the light was coming through the window behind my monitor. Memories get burned into physical detail like that sometimes, when the moment is large enough. I clicked on the post. She had written 3 paragraphs. I'm not going to reproduce them here because they are hers and some part of me still feels that matters, even now. But I will tell you the shape of them. The first paragraph described our relationship in general terms. 2 years, happy, a genuine connection. She believed he loved her. That part felt true. That part one could read without my breathing changing. The second paragraph described the job offer and what had followed. Here is where it started to diverge from the situation as I understood it. In her account, she had been clear about what she needed and he had been repeatedly evasive. She described a series of conversations in which she had tried to get clarity about the future, and he had consistently withheld it, citing reasons that sounded legitimate but always seemed to come up right when it mattered. She said she felt like she was being strung along by someone who cared about her enough not to end it but not enough to actually commit to it. She said she had been feeling this way for a long time, not just since the job offer. The third paragraph asked the community what they thought, asked if this was a pattern, asked if she was reading it wrong. There were 247 comments. I read the comments. I know, but I read them. The comments were largely sympathetic to her. The comments said, "This is avoidant attachment." The comments said, "A man who wants to be with you makes it work. Full stop." The comments said, "You deserve someone who doesn't make you feel like a problem to be solved." The comments said a great many confident things about a situation they knew from 3 paragraphs, which is the particular alchemy of the relationship advice internet. It transforms partial information into total certainty with remarkable efficiency. I am not being dismissive of the people who commented. They were responding to what they had been given. What they had been given was a real situation, described by one person, with that person's genuine feelings, framed in a way that made a specific conclusion feel inevitable. I want to be very careful here about how I say what I'm about to say, because I do not want to sound like someone minimizing another person's experience. Her feelings were real. Her uncertainty was real. Her fear about the future was real. I believe all of that. But the account she had given, the repeated evasion, the feeling that had been building for a long time, the sense of being strung along, did not match the relationship I thought we were in. In my understanding, we had been navigating a difficult situation together, openly, with the specific kind of friction that comes from 2 people trying to solve a real problem. In her posted account, she had been watching someone avoid her for months. 2 people in the same relationship living 2 different experiences of it. And she had told strangers on the internet. And she had not told me. There were updates. Of course there were updates. People on Reddit who post about relationships always post updates, because the community asks for them, because not knowing what happened to someone you've been invested in for 3 paragraphs is a particular kind of frustration. She had posted 4 updates over 6 weeks. I read all of them. The first update. She had tried to have a direct conversation with him. He had listened, said he understood, said he needed more time to think. The community responded, "More time, always more time." The second update. They had talked again, and it had felt better, and she was cautiously hopeful. She said he had said things that felt real. The community was divided. Some said trust it, most said wait and see. The third update. She had made a decision. She was going to take the job, she was going to love herself enough to move toward her own life, and she was going to see what he did with that. She wrote, "I've decided to stop explaining myself to people who were never going to understand me anyway, and just trust my own direction." That sentence. That exact sentence. 6 weeks later, slightly rearranged, on a sunset background. The fourth update was posted 4 days before Tuesday. It said, "I'm moving in 12 days. I think I know what this means for us, even if he doesn't say it out loud yet. I'm sad, but I feel weirdly free. I sat at my desk and I did not move for a while. I thought about the last 2 months. I replayed them from a different angle, the way you reread a paragraph when you suspect you've missed something. Our conversations. The ones I thought were productive. The ones I thought were us working through something." She had been in those same conversations and had walked away from them feeling seen through and unheard. And instead of telling me that, instead of saying I need more from you than what you're giving me right now, she had been going to Reddit. And Reddit had confirmed what she already suspected. Because Reddit always confirms what you already suspect. That is what it's designed to do, in the best and worst possible ways. And she had made a decision, the decision to move forward regardless, the decision that amounted to a private ending. And she had written about it on the internet before she had told me. She had grieved the relationship in public before she had grieved it with me. I need to tell you about the next part carefully because the next part is where other people got involved, and that is where the blowing up of lives portion of this story begins in earnest. I texted my friend Caleb. He is one of 3 people I would genuinely call my closest friends, and he is the one with the particular quality of being able to hear something and respond to it without immediately deciding how to feel. I told him what I had found. I described it mostly as a conversation that needed to happen. Caleb said, "Before you talk to her, you should know. Has she told people? Like your people?" I didn't understand what he meant at first. He said, "Because Maya mentioned something to me a few weeks ago about you, about the move stuff. Maya is Caleb's girlfriend. Maya and Jenna are friends, were friends, are in the same social circle, which is the specific kind of friend network that forms when you date someone long enough to genuinely merge your social lives. Maya and Jenna get coffee sometimes without me. That's a normal thing that exists in healthy relationships. Caleb told me that at one of these coffees a few weeks ago, Jenna had talked to Maya about the move situation, had talked about feeling like I wasn't fully in it, had said some version of the things she had posted online. I asked, what did Maya think? Caleb was quiet for a moment. He said, she's been worried about you. She didn't want to say anything to you because she didn't want to get in the middle of it, but she did tell me, and I think it's gotten around a little. It's gotten around a little. One of the quietest, devastating sentences I've heard. I said, who? Caleb listed 3 names. People in our friend group. People I had been around, eating at tables, at birthday parties, watching sports, doing the ordinary social things of an ordinary adult life, and they had known a version of the situation. A version. The version that had been described by one person to one friend who had told others. I called Jenna. She answered on the second ring, which tells me she had been expecting a call in the way you expect a call when you know that something you've put in motion is in motion. I said, I saw your post. She said, yeah. I said, and I went to the comments. A pause. Then, okay. I said, and I found the Reddit account. A longer pause. Here is something I want to say about the silence that followed, because it was a specific kind of silence and I want to describe it accurately. It was not the silence of someone caught in something they thought was hidden. It was more like the silence of someone who had been waiting for a particular door to open and was now watching it open, and was not entirely sure if they felt relieved or afraid, and were sitting with both. She did not deny it. She did not explain it. She just said, how long have you been looking? I said, long enough. She said, I'm sorry. I said, I need to understand something. Did you actually think I was stringing you along? She said, I didn't know what you were doing. That was the problem. You were so careful and considered and I needed you to be certain, and you kept not being certain, and I didn't know where to put that, so I put it somewhere. I said, you put it on Reddit. She said, I put it somewhere I could hear something back. We talked for a long time that afternoon. It was the most honest conversation we had had in 2 months, and it was honest in the specific and terrible way that honesty sometimes is, where you understand each other completely for the first time and the understanding does not save anything. It just lets you see clearly what was already the shape of things. She said she had not meant for the Reddit posts to be a decision. She had meant them to be a release valve. But the community had reflected her own worst fear back at her with such confidence that she had started to believe it as fact. She said she knew that sounded like she was blaming the internet, and she wasn't, not really, because the fear had been real and the feeling had been real. But the conclusion, the quiet private ending she had written about in that 4th update, had been reached in the company of strangers, and she had carried it into our relationship without ever showing it to me. I told her about what Caleb had said, about Maya, about it having gotten around. She closed her eyes. I could feel it, somehow, through the phone. She said she hadn't realized how far the coffee conversation had traveled. She said she trusted Maya and she hadn't thought it would move. I said, my friends think I've been checking out of this relationship for months. She said, I'm sorry. I said, that's a version of me that doesn't match who I thought I was being. She said, I know. And I know that's not fair. We sat in that for a while. The days between Tuesday and Sunday were like standing in slow-moving water. Heavy in a way that doesn't knock you down, just makes every step take more effort than it should. I had a conversation with Caleb and Maya together that was uncomfortable in the specific way that happens when people have been kind in your direction based on incomplete information and then have to reckon with the incompleteness. Maya was honest. She said Jenna had been struggling and she had wanted to support her. She said she hadn't known the other side of it. She said she was sorry if things had moved in ways that were unfair to me. I told her I wasn't angry. I wasn't. I was just tired. Tired in the specific way of someone who has been living one life while a parallel conversation about that life was happening just outside his earshot. The other friends were more awkward to navigate. The problem with a story that travels through a social network is that it travels in one direction and it leaves a residue. You cannot easily unknow a version of someone. You can update it, revise it, add nuance, but the first version leaves a trace, and the trace changes how you're perceived in ways that never fully correct. I am not a dramatic person. I am not someone who makes scenes or demands accounting. So I didn't address it directly with most of them. I let it exist as an ambient wrongness that would probably fade. Maybe. I don't fully know. Jenna moved on a Saturday. I helped her because we had agreed to help each other before Tuesday existed, and I am the kind of person who follows through on agreements even when agreements have become complicated. It was a long day. We were careful with each other. Polite in the specific way that hurts more than anger would. We carried boxes. We drove the rented van. We assembled furniture in her new apartment, new city, good apartment, southern light coming through the windows in a way that I could see she was registering, the part of her that notices things like that, noticing that she had made the right choice about the space itself. We ordered food at the end of the day and sat on the floor of her mostly bare living room among the boxes that still needed unpacking, and ate it out of the containers and talked quietly about small things and said nothing about what had happened. At the end of the night, she walked me to where I'd parked, and we stood on the sidewalk in the particular stillness of a city at 11 p.m., and she looked at me in a way I recognized from the beginning. The attentive way, the observant way. She said, "I think I made it a story before it was finished." I said, "I know." She said, "I think I needed the story to have an ending before I'd written all of it." I thought about that. I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm sorry that the version I needed got out." I said, "I'm sorry I made you feel like you needed a version." We stood there for a bit longer. Then I drove home. For hours, mostly in silence, the radio on low, the dark stretches of highway between the cities, the particular loneliness of a car at night after something has concluded. I've been home since Sunday. The apartment is the same apartment. My coffee maker is in the same spot. Biscuit, wait, no, we didn't have a dog, that's someone else's story. This is just me and the apartment, which is the same as it always was and also subtly different in the way spaces are different when a person has stopped moving through them. I've been thinking about the quote, "When you finally stop explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand you anyway, that's when the real healing begins." The thing is, she wasn't wrong that there was something worth saying there. She was scared and she was uncertain and she needed to be heard. I understand that. I hold that with genuine compassion. What broke my heart was not that she had the feeling. It was that she built an entire internal ending around a feeling I never knew she was having, in a forum I wasn't part of, with people who only knew my outline. I spent 2 years being a full person with her. And then I became a sketch. And the sketch got shown around. Someone asked me last week, a friend who knew pieces of it, not all of it, whether I was angry. They expected, I think, the kind of anger that's loud and righteous. The kind that comes with a clear narrative. He was wronged. She did the wrong thing. Here is the score. I told him honestly, not really. Not the clean kind. What I feel is closer to the strange specific grief of realizing that the relationship you were in was not entirely the relationship you thought you were in. Not because she was lying exactly, but because she had a whole interior experience that she took elsewhere, and the elsewhere shaped the ending before I got to weigh in on it. That's what the inspirational quote was, finally. It wasn't the cause of anything. It was the announcement of a conclusion she'd already reached. The sunset background, the white cursive font, the vague words about peace and healing and stopping explaining yourself. It was a public statement of a private resolution. It just happened to be the thing that led me to find where the resolution had been written. I don't know what I want to say at the end of this. I've been sitting here trying to figure out the shape of the closing and I keep coming up short, which might just be honest. She's in her new apartment with the good southern light. I'm in the same apartment I was in 2 years ago before any of this. The mutual friends are recalibrating in the specific slow way that friend groups recalibrate after something changes their composition. Caleb has texted me every day, which is the thing Caleb does, and which I am grateful for. I think the truest thing I can say is this: Be careful what you build in the spaces where your person can't see you. Not because you aren't allowed to process privately. Not because you aren't allowed your own feelings, your own fears, your own safe places to put things that are hard. But because the story you tell about your relationship, in the dark, to strangers, will eventually shape the relationship. It will determine the questions you ask. It will color what you hear when your partner speaks. It will lead you to conclusions, and the conclusions will become the truth before you've checked them against the person sitting across from you. She asked for understanding from the internet. The internet gave her certainty instead. That's what it does. It's not the internet's fault. That's just the thing it's built to provide. I was sitting 2 feet away from her for 2 years. I would have listened. I would have tried to understand. I know I wasn't perfect at it. I know the move situation was real, and the fear was real, and the uncertainty was exhausting. I know she had a reason to need somewhere to put it. I just wish somewhere had been me. Edit. To the people asking if we're completely done, yes. Not dramatically, not with anger, but yes. We talked about it properly before I left on Saturday night. We both know where it landed. I think we're okay with each other, as okay as you can be. I just didn't want to lead with that because the story isn't really about the outcome. It's about what I found in the middle. Edit 2. Before anyone asks, no, I don't think she's a bad person. Please don't go after her in the comments. The whole point of what happened is that she was scared and looking for somewhere to put the fear. I understand that. I'm writing this because I needed somewhere to put it too.